Ghost Hunting in New England.
Your favorite spooky podcast.
Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Ghost Hunting in New England with your hosts, Amelia
and Beth.
And this week we have an extra special co-host on with us, Will Fox. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm making my return. Hello, ladies.
Hi, Will.
Hello. So, how have you been? Give us an update.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. There's lots of snow on the ground up here in Buffalo, and that's pretty much all that's going on.
Have you seen any good ghosts lately?
I think they might be hibernating. I have been looking, though. I have gotten a few more dolls since the last time I was on the show, and I have
really
all of zero activity from any of them. So, but my hopes are still up there.
Where did you get the dolls?
I got a couple from a friend of the show on the Unbelievers podcast, Russ.
Hey, Russ.
He sent me a few, and I got a couple from a guy here at work that he said his grandma really didn't like them and wanted to get rid of them, but couldn't for some reason. I never got the full story, but they've been pretty benign. So
he stole his grandma's dolls and gave them to you? Wow.
I don't ask too many questions when people give me dolls, but
it's probably better that way.
It's probably yeah. So but I'll keep you guys posted if I get any actual activity. But so far, no dice.
Dang.
I don't know if I ever said this on the show, but my actual goal for having these and collecting these is like being able to have a condensed area where I can test paranormal equipment. So like I want to have something where I can have a high likely possibility of paranormal activity in a certain area where I could test stuff. That's the whole reason for this. Plus they're creepy. It's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So we should be looking forward to videotapes and, just all sorts of interesting stuff, right?
If I get any kind of results from any kind of dolls and then I can actually test equipment, absolutely, you guys will hear all about it.
All right. Well, we look forward to that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. So this week, what we are talking about is what we talked about last year, which is love gone wrong. True crime meets haunted ghost stories.
Back in early 2020. Seems like 4 or 5 years ago now.
It does. It feels like forever ago. And it was right around this time that I do recall saying to Will, oh my gosh, Will, I'm so concerned about this COVID thing. Do you think it's going to come over here? And what did you say to me, Will?
I think it might just blow over.
He said, I'm not worried one bit.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up again.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please do not go to Will for psychic readings for the future.
Oh, gosh. So anyway, we're doing the same thing again this year because I think it's kind of fun,
Yeah, same thing, different stories, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll make another weird prediction, too, that doesn't come true.
All right.
All right.
We'll see.
What did I say last year? What was it called? Love gone wrong. I'd rather get ghosted. So cute. I'm going to do that again.
It was clever. I remember that.
All right, let's get started. So my first story is about a woman named, and I'm going to screw this name up, even though I called Beth earlier in the day to have her help me pronounce it. Imogene.
Yep.
Right?
Imogene. Yep.
It sounds like emoji, but it's Imogene Remus.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
George Remus met Imogene in Chicago while he was a criminal defense lawyer. The couple, who married in 1920, then made their way to Cincinnati, and George made the obvious leap from criminal defense attorney to criminal mastermind and began his bootlegging business. He became known as the bootleg king, and in just 4 years, he sold an estimated 3 million gallons of whiskey. That's
glug,
so
glug,
much.
glug.
That's a lot.
That's like a weekend.
When his luck finally ran out, he served time in an Atlanta penitentiary. In early September 1925, Imogene filed for divorce, alleging that George had been guilty of extreme cruelty on numerous occasions. He was due to be released from the penitentiary after a 2-year sentence, and then to serve a year in prison in the Cincinnati area. The local papers reported he told her to file for divorce after calling her, quote, vile and unmentionable names, end quote, when she visited him in Atlanta. Imogene also asked for a restraining order at that time. Needless to say, the marriage had completely fallen apart, and on October 6, 1927, the day their divorce was to be finalized, George and his chauffeur followed Imogene's cab through Walnut Hills in the Hollywood-style car chase. As the cab driver tried to get away, the Buick with George inside slammed into the back of it. Imogene, dressed head to toe in black to mourn the loss of her marriage, scrambled from the cab and tried to run into Eden Park. George ran after her, grabbed her by the wrist, pressed his pearl-handled revolver against her abdomen, and fired one shot that hit nearly all of her vital organs. I have a question about my own story. So I have never shot a gun, but I do know that the two people I'm speaking with now have. Mm-hmm. And it says he had a pearl-handled revolver. Is that exactly what it sounds like? Is that like pearls on the handle of the revolver?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a decorative type piece. Just
beautiful. And that sounds really cool. Mm-hmm. Her daughter Ruth ran out of the car and tried to stop him from firing again. Imogene was taken to a hospital by the witness and died 2 hours later. George defended himself in court, claiming temporary insanity, and the jury found him not guilty, which is easy to do when you pay off the jurors. During the murder trial, Imogene's daughter Ruth testified against George. The prosecution also presented a note written by Imogene to a family member about the divorce hearing only 2 days before the shooting. Go to Ruth at once if they hurt me. I'm brave and realize the evidence is important, Imogene wrote. George countered the divorce with charges that Imogene and Franklin Dodge, a prohibition agent, were carrying on an illicit love affair and conspiring to kill and defraud him. All of this is what George said caused his temporary insanity that led him to kill his wife. It is said that Imogene's remains were sent back to her family in Chicago, and that last rites were omitted, and the burial was secret and mysterious, as was the arrival of the body. Anyway, fast forward to now time. Her ghost is now said to haunt the Eden Park gazebo, so that's right where she was shot, inside Eden Park. People report hearing music from the Roaring Twenties softly playing at the gazebo. So they'll just be there sitting, having lunch, like having a nice time, and it's like this like faint 1920s music. And people have reported seeing her. So many locals say a woman in a black dress and black hat seems to be in distress or just observing the nearby Mirror Lake. She can be as real as any person, or sometimes she just appears as a shadow, but she always disappears when the people are looking at her. Spooky. Dan Smith, the owner and operator of Haunted Cincinnati Tours.
Dan Smith does not sound like a real name.
Dan Smith?
Yeah, that sounds made up.
I'd say it sounds like an alias.
Mm. One of my dad's best friends is Dan Smith.
Kind of like Will Fox, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So he's the owner and operator of the Haunted Cincinnati Tours, and he was quoted in the Cincinnati Enquirer saying that over the past 10 years, tour groups have seen plenty of activity in Eden Park. People have gotten a lot of weird photos, Smith said. She's definitely out there. Smith said more often than not, there's activity during the tours. He said when questions are asked, the lights of their instruments turn on, possibly indicating the presence of a spirit, which is pretty wild stuff, because I personally have never really seen anything like that happen on a ghost tour. You know, like weird little like ghost walking tours. Have you guys ever seen anything paranormal happen on those?
Not even once.
I've
been on lots of them.
Not anything that I could pretty easily debunk, or couldn't easily debunk, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this guy, Dan Smith. I don't want to throw him under the bus. I'm sure the Haunted Cincinnati ghost tours are really great. But it almost reminded me, did you guys watch what was that movie?
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Dazed and Confused? I sure did.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber. It's a great movie.
No, not that one. Ouija.
No.
Haven't, no.
Oh, well, it's pretty good. So it's about this family in the 1970s, and the mom is like putting on fake seances and like does the whole get up for the fake seances. And she says it's like give families closure, but then the house ends up being haunted. Spoiler alert.
Yikes.
Oh, wow.
And craziness ensues. So,
well, of course.
But it reminded me of that. Like, I don't know. Is this guy like doing something to get that to happen? Because like that, I don't know. Again, I don't know. I've never been on a walking ghost tour where I've seen a ghost, much less like every single time.
Oh no, definitely not every single. I mean, if you're in an area that's supposedly haunted, anything could happen. But if it's every single time, I am writing that off immediately.
He says more often than not, there's activity.
I'd like
This
to know
guy's
what
trying
his
to sell tickets to
definition.
his ghost tours.
I'd like to know what his definition of activity is.
We have a very good friend of the show who I'm not going to name right now because I don't know if he'd want me saying this, but he told us he has never seen a ghost and he owns a very, very popular ghost tour company.
I like that. I like that honesty.
But he wants to see one. He believes they're real. He wants to see it more than anything. And he really believes this stuff. And he's like upset he hasn't seen it, but he's never seen one.
I feel like those kind of people probably make some of the best investigators, honestly. People that do believe, but can openly admit that they haven't seen anything like that, but want to.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe someday we can show him his first ghost.
I think between the three of us, we could probably bring him somewhere special.
I love that. I think we should.
And I don't promise that I can show him a ghost, but I might be able to be like, stand here and it will come over and touch you.
Well, you never know. If I get a good doll in my house, then I might be able to do that.
Yeah.
Please send me dolls, people.
Woo. All right. So Amelia's story seemed to touch on a bunch of places that weren't New England. And I actually had some trouble finding a good story from New England or any story from New England other than, well, that's not true. I did find one. It was about Emily and the covered bridge in Vermont. But Amelia and I talked about that way back in season 1. So I didn't want to repeat that story. So instead, I went a little outside of New England. Okay, a lot outside of New England to a little place called St. Augustine, Florida. And in St. Augustine, there's an old fort, and it was built in 1672, and it has lots of spooky history. You all know how much I love some good history talk, so here's a little story of how the fort became Castillo de San Marcos, or St. Mark's Castle if you're primarily fluent in English and not Spanish, like me. The fort was built of some fancy pants limestone, which wasn't something that you think would be good to build a fort out of. But what they discovered was that forts that were built of bricks and cement would crumble when they were hit with cannonballs. But the Castillo de San Marcos basically absorbed cannonballs into these limestone walls, where the cannonballs then served as additional protection from future cannonball shots. I don't know. I just thought that was so interesting that they had managed to find this material to build a fort out of that would just kind of take on any sort of ammunition shot at it and use that ammunition as protection. I was really kind of taken by that.
I'm imagining being on a ship and sailing towards this fort that I want to take over, and it's covered in cannonballs, and I don't know if I would have much hope after that.
Right. And I think that's kind of what started to happen. So the fort was built in 1672 by the Spanish. It's this weird, like unique little star-shaped fort. So it has like a centerpiece to it and then some branches that kind of go off of that center. And there's like outer walls around it, as most forts will have. There were major renovations done in 1695, and the fort has been stormed, defended, taken by attackers, and retaken by others over the years. The Spanish, English, the United States, the Confederate States, and the Union Army have all had a go at being king of the castle of St. Marcos. The last change of hands was when the Union Army retook the fort in 1862 from the Confederacy, and it was primarily used as a prison after that. The prisoners that were kept there were Native Americans who had the audacity to think they deserved to live on their own land and not be pushed out by the United States government. And before Amelia goes all off on Andrew Jackson as the worst person ever in history, I just want to carry on here about the one story that I found about a headless Native American who haunts the fort. And the story
hold on. I had no intention of bringing up Andrew Jackson, but since you did, I do not believe he is the worst person in history. I for sure think he's in the running for one of the worst American presidents of all time. That's all I had to say.
And this is to say that in 2021 is a little impressive. I will say though, I've done a lot of research on Andrew Jackson. He's a very interesting person. I won't say he's a good person, but he's definitely interesting.
Okay.
That's a word for it.
All right. Well, so here's the story behind the headless Native American. He was captured by the American forces but he was ill when he was captured. He befriended a doctor who worked at the fort, and when the man ultimately died, his good friend, the doctor, proceeded to lop off his head during the autopsy, and he wrapped the man's neck stump in a scarf. Like it was bizarre. And so the headless man is seen wandering around the grounds at dusk. But Amelia, this is similar to what you were talking about earlier. When people try to like get a good look at him, he just disappears. Right. So it's just one of those, like, you catch it out of the corner of your eye. But a lot of people are seeing this headless Native American man. Apparently he's in native dress, bare chested, and just headless. So yeah, it's kind of weird. But then again, maybe it's not actually the fort itself that's haunted. Maybe it's the land itself, because in 1565, which was 55 years before our beloved Pilgrims landed here in Plymouth, and 42 years before the lesser-known settlement at Jamestown, Virginia, Spanish forces massacred a group of Protestant French Huguenots who were shipwrecked nearby. The river that they dumped all of these French Huguenot bodies in is called and I'm sorry, my Spanish is absolutely horrendous, but the Matanzas, which is Spanish for massacres. Visitors to the fort over the years have witnessed many different kinds of paranormal activity. Photographers have captured photos with misty apparitions. People walking through have seen shadow people. As I mentioned before, there have been sightings of the headless man, but also other Native Americans have been seen haunting the grounds. Lights are seen in empty watchtowers at dark. Disembodied voices are often heard around the fort. But this is the Valentine's Day episode, and so we know there has to be a love story gone wrong here, right? Here we go. In 1784, the Spanish were in control of the fort. They had recently overthrown the English, who had been holding the fort as a POW camp for Americans during the Revolutionary War. The man in charge of the Castillo de San Marcos was a colonel named Garcia Marti. Colonel Marti married this beautiful woman named Dolores, and he brings her to live as a civilian within the fort. Now, Garcia is very, very busy being the colonel of the fort. He's in charge of the whole thing. And so he is running around here, there, and everywhere, taking care of everything except his beautiful young wife. So his beautiful young wife gets a little bored, right? Her eye starts wandering a little, and her gaze falls on Colonel Marti's assistant, Captain Manuel Abella. And they spent several months carrying on this illicit love affair, and no one was the wiser. And they were only found out after Colonel Marti called Captain Abella to his office for something. And as they were greeting each other, Colonel Marti caught a whiff of his wife's very very unique. Pungent? No, not pungent. Very unique, still not the word I'm looking for.
Iconic.
Nope. Anyway, so she has this very recognizable perfume. Distinct. Ooh, there's a good word for it. So he smells his wife's distinct perfume on Captain Abella. Now, he immediately, Colonel Marti, immediately knows without question that this man is sleeping with his wife. So by the next morning, his wife Dolores has, quote, taken ill and gone to her aunt's house to recover. And from there, she is going to return directly to Spain. Also, by the next morning, Captain Abella has been reassigned to work in Cuba. Now, people around the fort started to notice and talk a little bit about the idea that Dolores did not seem ill, and it seemed awfully strange that Captain Abella left without saying goodbye to anyone. But because Colonel Marti was, head of the fort, nobody really questioned him deeply on it. And so time went on. No one ever heard from those two people again. And so about 50 years later, so now we're talking like the 1830s, they were wheeling a cannon across a floor on one of the upper floors, and the floor actually collapsed, and it fell into a room down below that was a hidden room. And when they kind of cleared the dust, they saw that there were two skeletons, one man and one woman, chained to the wall. So apparently, Colonel Marty, in his rage, had taken his wife and her lover and very Cask of Amontillado style, walled them up in a hidden room, chained to the wall so they could starve to death. Nice guy, yeah?
Maybe don't cheat on your husband.
Yeah, but that's still a terrible way to die.
That's true. I do respect the dedication to it, though, walling them in like that. If they want to be together, they're going to be together.
Well, and even more than that, like, I mean, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take a couple of people to die like that, but it's got to be a long time.
It's like 3 weeks.
Yeah, it seems completely awful. So, anyway, so now we have reports of Dolores, who still haunts the fort. She is seen, believe it or not, as a woman in white who is forlornly going around the fort, looking and looking and looking. And so people don't know, is she looking for Captain Abella or is she looking for her husband and trying to get back at him? There are also reports of a Spanish soldier who stands atop the fort looking out over the sea, just very sad, that there's just a sadness all around him. And so it's thought that his ghost might be Colonel Marty, maybe rethinking some of those decisions that he made. Maybe he has some regret about what he did. And so that's the story of Colonel Marty and his wife Dolores. So there was one other little piece of information about the haunting. You can actually go to the fort during the day now. It's a national park, so you can go in and you can take tours of the fort. And so people who are outside that walled-in room that you can now see, a lot of people have reported that there's the feeling of a cold hand pressing on the back of their neck while they're standing there looking. And so it's reported that that may be Dolores just making herself known, looking for help or anything like that. So yeah, that's my story. I only have one this week. I'm sorry.
Good story, Beth. That was nice. That was a
Yeah.
fun one.
It was a great story. I mean, I can't even.
I don't know why I called it a fun one. It's a horrible story. No, it's good. It's a great story, but it's very upsetting.
I don't know. Of all the ways to die, I really think that dying of thirst, starving to death, being chained to a wall in the dark, right? It has probably got to be one of the worst ways to go.
I'm just thinking of the husband's thought process where he, you just find out that your wife's been sleeping with this, one of your
subordinates.
Subordinates. Yeah. And you just, that thought process goes to, well, if they want to be together, they're going to be together.
Yeah. I'm going to chain them to a wall. And
if you think about it, they've spent the rest of their lives together happily ever after, right?
No. Can you imagine for 1 second that they were happy in there?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they enjoyed the time together, right?
All right, now I think it's time for a fun story. And this one's actually kind of fun. I guess it's kind of fun. You can also look at it as kind of sad, depending. But I'm going to say this one's a fun one. Okay, here we go.
So what's weird is, just keep this in mind. Amelia called me before she decided to do this one and asked if it would be okay to do this story. And my answer was, absolutely. How could you imagine not doing this story? So here you go, folks.
Not that my curiosity hasn't been here, but it's definitely here now.
Okay, so this story, I'm just going to dive right into it. So, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to ask you a question first. So, Will, have you ever heard of this woman whose name is Amanda Teague, formerly Amanda Large? She's been in international news all over the world.
I feel like that name is familiar. I don't know why, but okay, I might find out why very shortly. Something tells me.
So in 2016, Amanda Large Teague of Downpatrick, Northern Ireland, married the ghost of a pirate named Jack, who had allegedly been hanged in the 1700s for piracy in the Caribbean.
I think I remember this now.
And
I want to know who officiated this wedding.
I'm going to get to all of it.
All right, great.
So there are a lot of stories like this we hear about all the time. There are women in America like this. I think there's some woman up in Canada who does this. It happens. And like, who am I to judge? But I am judging because Tim Regan said last week, I'm kind of judgmental. And I just feel like, I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. But we'll read on. So according to the Washington Post, Amanda was meditating for the first time, she says, when she met the ghost of the 300-year-old Haitian pirate. She thought he was rude to interrupt her solitude. So she was like, get out of here. And he did. But then he came back. So the
Persistent ghosts.
I know. And so then time number 2, she was like, listen, guy, I'm like really not interested. Like, whatever. Like, come on, like, leave me alone. You're coming on kind of strong.
Playing hard to get, was she?
I know, right? But the third time he showed up, that's when she was like, all right, let's have a combo. I'll give you a shot. I'll see what's up. So after she communicated with the ghost for several months, she said that she became convinced it was Jack Teague, who she later claimed had inspired the character of Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So we got to note 2 things right now, right off the bat. First thing that needs to be noted is that experts, historians, say, no, sorry, like that's wouldn't have been the guy who inspired that movie at all. So sorry. And then it should also be noted that she had previously worked as a Jack Sparrow impersonator.
This woman is just obsessed with Johnny Depp, I think.
I honestly, I think there's something else to be noted here too. I think, gentlemen, persistence is the name of the game. It's what I think that's what we're learning here.
Yes, I'd agree. I'd agree with
no,
that.
I'm gonna go with if she says no, like just move on.
Okay. Well, yeah, there might be a happy medium.
I guess. All right. Yeah. Well, maybe if it's like politely, like Paul asked me out a few times before I went out with him.
There you go.
But I wasn't like, get the hell away from me. I was like, maybe this weekend, but probably not.
He didn't interrupt your meditation?
No, but he does now. All right. Moving on. Okay. So, oh, this is where it gets kind of sad. It's like a minute of sad and then it'll get kind of funny again. But I guess you could look at the whole thing as kind of sad. I don't know. So Teague started exploring spirituality after, unfortunately, her 3-month-old son passed away. So he died of SIDS in 2010, which is really horrifying. So at that point, when he passed away, she considered herself agnostic. So then she started exploring her spirituality a lot more at that time. Her journey of spirituality led her to discover like New Age philosophies, mediumship, this stuff. Eventually, she decided to get really into paganism. I would also kind of like a little like caveat star on this, like not all pagans. I would say most don't believe that you should like marry a deceased spirit. So
I think the majority of the pagans that I know would probably
like the overwhelming. I don't want to be like, oh, she's a pagan, because like not a lot of people. It's like, you know, it's one of those religions that like a lot of people don't know a lot about, and a lot of people like misconstrue what they think. So I want it to be like very well known. She identifies as pagan, but maybe she's like a fringe pagan, you know. We have those people in Christianity too. God knows it. Okay. So she eventually married this guy in 2016 on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean in a ceremony officiated by a self-described shaman. And soon after, she changed her last name to Teague. So she married this ghost out in international waters. A medium spoke for Jack to give his consent to the marriage. And so this is where something gets a little funny. Teague claims that an officiant filed legal paperwork in Northern Ireland to make the marriage official. I don't know. Like, when you get married here, like when Paul and I get married, right? We have to fill out paperwork together. Like, it's not like we just get married and that's it.
Well,
not only do you have to fill out paperwork, but then the paperwork that you fill out gets submitted to your officiant and they have to fill it out and submit it. So it's a multi-step process. Yeah.
Must have been ghostwriting. That's what I'm thinking.
Will Fox, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. So she married him, blah, blah, blah. Teague said that her and Jack also participated in a pagan hand fasting ceremony in which 2 witches wrapped cords around the couple, joined hands to symbolize the binding of the pair. Most of Teague's friends at the time were part of the same spiritual circles as she was. So she said they immediately supported her relationship with Jack, and so did her 4 living children from a previous marriage. Can you imagine that? Like, that's your stepdad?
Could you imagine that's your mom? I'd be more concerned about that.
I know.
There are much worse of both options, unfortunately.
So her mother came to the hand fasting, but refused to go to the shamanic wedding. But her father was just like, I'm not doing this. So they weren't into it, especially not the dad. And he didn't give away his daughter. But all the photos online of her, she's in a very nice wedding dress. She went with the nice white dress. So Amanda claims that after 2 weeks of marriage, she started experiencing health problems.
Like morning sickness and...
No. So now she's 49 years old, but she said back then she began to worry that her health issues were due to being possessed by her husband. So that was concerning to her. And then the spirit of her dog named Toby was apparently really aggressive to Jack the ghost. So that's when she was like, something's really going on here. And nowhere could I find out like how long these guys...
Something's definitely going on, but I don't think it has anything to do with Jack.
I think something
Toby.
started going on for a couple weeks prior. So
it doesn't say how long they dated either. So like, who knows how well she really got to know this guy. And
you really got to make sure that you bring the ghost around your parents and you bring
around
the ghost
your friends, see how they react in public.
Yeah, you got to make sure that your ghost gets along with your friends and your coworkers, even sometimes,
And your dog's ghost.
Yeah, your dog's ghost. Your dog.
Okay, so she began to experience these health problems, and so they worsened after she was intimate with Jack. So they do.
I don't even want to know.
They'd do the marital dance together, and then she would get like really extra, not feeling great. But after a little while of this, she was admitted to the hospital with sepsis.
Really?
Yes, she was documented in the hospital. She had sepsis. She said she almost died from it. And then during her surgery, she told, this is now to the Irish Post, she's quoted as saying, "I had to take my wedding ring off when I went into surgery. That must have cut the energetic link between us because I felt totally different after the operation."
Maybe the whole like antibiotics to, clear up the sepsis might have had a little bit more to do with that.
I would hope that most people feel different after an operation.
Yeah, for sure. So shortly after this, she decided that she like really just had to fully end this marriage completely. It wasn't good for her health. And she told Jack, "I'm so sorry, but I gotta get rid of you." And when she did that, he threatened to kill her. So now we have that problem.
Sounds like my ex-wife, actually.
I'm sorry, Will. Well, luckily your ex-wife didn't go through with it, and neither did Jack. She said, again, this is in the Irish Post I got this quote from, "It was terrifying seeing a completely different side to the spirit I had seen before, but I knew in my heart that if I didn't get rid of him, my health was getting so bad that I would probably die anyway."
Dun, dun, dun.
So in December 2018, she went through with an exorcism and got rid of Jack. She says since the exorcism, her health problems have miraculously cleared up, and that her experience has taught her to stay away from spirits and from the deceased, or at very least, like, be sure not to marry them. She's definitely not, looking to repeat this situation. And she wants to warn other women about it and make sure they don't make the same mistake she did in marrying a spirit. And
What
that
happened
is
to
her
her
story.
dog's ghost? Does she still let him come around?
I have no idea.
I think I need an update on Toby. Maybe
I don't know.
I'll send her an email.
I'm also interested in like who performed the exorcism. I couldn't find anything on that.
That's what I was gonna say too. She went from, what was it, agnostic to pagan, and then to perform an exorcism, you would have had to flip the script quite a few times.
Yeah.
She's
Well, and
changing
that's
sides a lot.
She is. She's a Catholic. But what I'm wondering is maybe they're like using the term exorcism lightly. But again, this is from the Irish Post, so I don't know.
Does anything make sense in this story? If we're really nitpicking about the exorcism, I mean, I think she got off pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, she didn't have to pay alimony. That's pretty good. 'Cause he definitely wasn't working.
Well, I would be really curious to hear from her kids who were in support of this. Is that what you said? Like all of her surviving children were.
They showed up at the wedding.
I wonder if it was just like a free booze cruise for them.
I don't know.
Hey, let's go watch Mom be like.
Hey, listen, that could have been a dry wedding, and I still would have gone for that.
But not if it was your mom. You'd be like, Mom, what the hell are you doing? And like, did they go with her to pick out her wedding dress?
Right. I feel like there are so many more details that we need here.
And it's in like every newspaper. It's here in America. It's in the Washington Post ran a story about this. It's in Ireland, the Scotland big newspaper over there did an article on it. Someone in London did an article on it. It's crazy.
Hey, if any of our listeners out there have married a ghost, we would like to talk to you.
Please write into the show. ghostsingingInNewEngland@gmail.com.
I'm sure your inbox will be flooded.
Send us.
We don't need it flooded. We just need one. And we're also going to want to talk to every single person who knows you if you send us the email, because
really,
we're going to need a lot more information.
Even if you haven't married anybody, just even if you went to one of these weddings, we probably still want to talk to you.
Even if you went on one date with a ghost, I'd like to hear about it.
Yep.
Did he buy you flowers?
I want to know how he got in touch with you.
Did
he just like look you up on Tinder, or like how did this happen?
Did he ghost you?
Will Fox, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Tip your waitress.
Well, cool. I think we learned a lot this week.
Yes, that I can't even believe that you thought that story was not going to be like a great story to tell on here. Like, should I tell this? Like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's not what I was asking. I would eventually tell it. I was almost thinking about pitching like an entire episode about like people who do this, but I was like, no, that could get kind of weird. But no, just because we talked about it being like, people who killed their spouses. And I was like, oh, here's one. I mean, he almost killed her. So
yeah. Right. So like Valentine, love gone wrong. Right?
I'd rather get ghosted.
Exactly.
So anyway, Will, thank you so much for being on this week and coming back to talk to us. This was a lot of fun.
It's my pleasure. I will come back anytime you need me.
Yay. And as always, we hope everyone has a very nice, awesome Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. Please don't murder your spouse.
Because they might come back and haunt you.
And
then you'll be on the show.
Yes. I had something I wanted to say earlier and I forgot, but I was watching the Investigation Discovery Channel yesterday, and there was actually a case where a guy murdered his wife and tried to get off. And then the day of his trial, his attorney walked up to the judge and he was like, this will be a short trial. And then the guy who killed his wife took the stand and was like, I must confess, my wife came to me in a dream last night and told me I must tell you the truth. Spooky.
Wow.
What was the truth?
That he killed her.
Oh, nice.
He confessed to the whole thing.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say there was some elaborate story about a one-armed man or something.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No. So don't kill your spouse. So yeah, I guess that's the moral of this week's episode. And don't marry a ghost because that could end in a messy divorce.
Don't marry ghosts. Don't kill your spouse. And persistence is key.
Bam.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Will. And you guys can reach us online at ghosthuntinginnewengland.com.
Wait, I'm not done. I have other things to talk about this week.
Okay.
I have a couple of really fun things to talk about. So, do you guys remember back in season 1, I talked about my mechanic who his father had come to him, like his father had passed away, and then his father came to him in the kitchen one night, and he like ran away from his father and has regretted it ever since then because his father has never come back. So anyway, I
Yes.
went to get air put in my tires the other day, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here because I have so many things to tell you about." So his wife had passed on last year as well, and so he's really been struggling with that, and he's gone to a variety of mediums. Like, do you know Tiffany Rice, Amelia, out of Bridgewater?
I have not seen her. I have heard of her.
So, like he's gone and seen her. He's, had a bunch of different experiences where he feels like his wife is there and providing comfort to him. And so he was showing me these pictures that were on Facebook, and we're not Facebook friends, or I would show them to you. But it's him and his niece at his niece's graduation. And in about half the pictures, when it's just him and the niece together, there's this like white shimmer right there next to them, and he's like, "This is my wife right here." This shimmer and it was just, it was so sweet. And then he was telling me how he went furniture shopping a couple of weeks ago, and as he wasn't sure what to pick out. His wife always did the decorating and stuff like that, and so as he was coming out of the store, he's just thinking to himself, I really hope that you like what I picked. I hope that I picked good stuff. And they kind of had an agreement between them when she was still alive that like rainbows were like her thing. And so he comes out of the furniture store and he looks up in the sky, and there's just this gorgeous rainbow all across the sky. And he's like, "She sent it for me to let me know that I picked good furniture."
Oh, that's
Like,
really sweet.
John, he tells me the best stories whenever I go there. It's just another great example how if you're listening to people, they will tell you their ghost stories. So go out and tell some people that you love our podcast and see if they're interested too. Maybe they have a story that they want to tell you.
Yes.
All right. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because last week you guys all heard Tim Regan make that birth chart prediction for me. And one of the things that he predicted was that right after my birthday, right, which was yesterday, I needed to be very careful about joint accounts that I have in the house. So I wake up this morning, and at 2:17, my bank had sent me a text message saying, "We stopped this charge because we believe it's fraudulent." It was a penny from some computer consulting company. And was it me? And I'm like, "No, that wasn't me." And I got an email at the same time. And then I went in and actually like checked my credit card statement. Whoever got my credit card also charged $140 on Walmart.com. So they're like stealing my money. So for those of you out there who think that maybe Tim Regan isn't like all he's cracked up to be, Tim Regan is 100% all he is cracked up to be. And I can't even tell you how much I recommend that you go and get a reading from him, because he's always spot on with me.
That's crazy.
It's pretty
Yeah,
significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Financial advisor, Tim Regan.
Psychic medium and Wiccan high priest, Tim Regan.
Okay, so anything else to go over today?
Will, tell us what kind of dolls to send you.
So, listen, I'll take any doll that you may or may not think that is haunted. If you guys want to get rid of it, you could DM me on Will_Fox_paranormal on Instagram, and I will take it off your hands. I will even Venmo you for shipping if that's what it takes.
Cool.
So, yeah, send your haunted dolls to Will. If you need to get in touch with Beth and I, you can find us online at ghosthuntinginNewEngland.com, Instagram at ghosthuntinginnewengland, Facebook.com/ghosthuntinginnewengland, on Twitter, ghosthuntingne, or try out our website. It hasn't been updated, and it probably won't be, but people are still finding us somehow, so maybe that's how. I don't know.
Yeah.
Happy
All right,
hunting,
great.
everyone.
Yeah, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.